We're really honored that we have such an active and growing user community. We're announcing a number of new community programs. In addition to the 2 user conferences that we hold, one on the East Coast and one on the West Coast, and our online forums, we've recently announced community publishing. So this enables anyone to publish server templates or other cloud components and then share them with the entire RightScale user community, or a smaller community if you define a smaller community to share those with. We've been holding a server template showdown through October. It's a contest, a server template publishing contest, and we'll announce the winners a little later today. We also have user groups starting up. The first week in December, we're starting a user group here in Northern California. The second week of December, there's one starting in Southern California. And hopefully many more will start up. So if you're interested in attending those, or you're interested in starting one yourself, go to the website. There's a lot more information. We also are kicking off an ambassador program. We have a lot of enthusiasts, people who would like to share what they're doing with RightScale, what they're doing on the cloud with their own communities, and we certainly would like to enable that one. So by signing up and becoming a RightScale ambassador, those folks will get access to pre-release webinars, lots of product and use, cloud usage information. They'll get access to our subject matter experts and RightScale executives. And if they really want to speak, we're going to build a speakers bureau so we can put them behind a podium to speak. And of course, there's lots of RightScale swag involved in this. So any of these community programs are all on our website. So here's our theme for this year, Agility Achieved. We heard through 2008 and 2009 a lot about how the cloud was saving costs. The pay-as-you-go business model, pay for only what you use. But toward the end of 2009, and certainly through 2010, we've heard more about how RightScale and the cloud are improving agility, both business agility and IT agility. Here are just some representative comments that we've heard. With RightScale, we can launch collaborations globally in the same day we discuss them. It's not a multi-month process. RightScale reduced our time to market by 3 months. It took only 4 months from development to launch of our new service. We expanded into an entirely new line of business. Automating our cloud computing deployments allowed us to devote more time to translational science projects. And we've implemented a self-service approach to infrastructure. So clearly, our customers are achieving agility. They're being more creative in their organizations. They are executing more research. They're moving into new businesses, releasing new products, reducing the time frames to get those products to market, and of course, just getting more IT into the hands of users faster. Let me kick this off and introduce our CEO and one of RightScale's founders, Michael Crandell.
Thanks, Betsy. I am so excited to be here today, and I'd like to start by thanking you all for coming and sharing your valuable time to meet with us. This is a very cool thing for RightScalers. You see a bunch of us in our blue shirts around because from day one, we've really focused on the community. We focused on our customers as well as our free users. We really regard working with you folks as a partnership as we explore this thing called cloud. We're going into our 4th year on that. And so thanks very much for taking your time to come share with us. No, but we really do want all of what you have to say, good, bad, and ugly, because it's how the product evolves, it's how we make ourselves better, and it's also how we learn. We're really in the business of cloud management. And that means first and foremost, we're around launching and managing resources in the new infrastructure as a service offerings called clouds in a very easy to use, fast off, on-ramp kind of a way. So it really is a push-button interface. We're a web-based platform, and you can do anything you want from managing servers as systems, all the way through to very sophisticated automation and orchestration with RightScale. Second major point about us is it's a very transparent, open environment, so that you can design what you need kind of down to the lowest level of the system. Operating system, middleware components, applications, programming language, etc. It's a very open system, and we're proud to continue the tradition of inviting partners in to offer their solutions on the RightScale platform also. And we have a number of those here today and a number of them offered on our site that you'll hear more about. So it's an open environment where a lot is being contributed both from the community, from partners, and from RightScale. And finally, it's a system that gives you control. It allows you to monitor and manage the resources that you're dealing with, but also monitor and manage users of the system, who's allowed to do what, and then finally all the way through to cost tracking. So it's really designed as a soup to nuts, full lifecycle management environment and platform for you to deal with your IT using cloud resources. A year ago, this is a shot of RightScale on the front steps. Those who were present that day in Santa Barbara, we were about 70 people. This year, we're now 120. This, by the way, is a very cool hotel in Santa Barbara. Those are the Santa Barbara Mountains in the background. And that is one of our favorite guys in the front row wearing pink pants. And our folks, however, about 25% of RightScalers work somewhere else than in Santa Barbara. They're all over the world. We have people in 10 states, 6 countries. We speak 14 different languages throughout the staff. And we have locations, as I mentioned, throughout the US. We have an office in Hammersmith in the United Kingdom, and also a brand new one in Singapore. And some of our staff from both those places are here. And I wanted to share a really exciting new development, which is RightScale in Japan. And this is the RightScale Cloud Van in Tokyo. This thing is outfitted with WiMAX as well as another kind of wireless access, and it's actually a roving office. And they found that in an environment where offices and real estate are super expensive, they actually can get more meetings driving around in this cool van. A year ago, we had launched 700,000 servers. And just to clarify, there are various claims out there, but those are servers that people came into the RightScale interface and launched, or they set rules inside the RightScale interface. And back then, this is what the spread of servers, the division of servers looked like. You can see it's about 2/3 small instances, and then another split of maybe 1/3 medium and large, and then tiny little slivers of extra large instances. This is kind of what the spread looked like back then. And the average spend across all running instances was about 17.5 cents an hour. Back in those days, I think most of them were 10 cents an hour. Now there's a little more spread on pricing, but that's what it looked like. This year, we've now launched over 1.6 million servers. That's about 130% growth in a year. And here's what the spread looks like. Look what's happened. Small's now less than 1/4. And extra larges occupying what looks like more than half of the instances. So what does that tell us? It tells us, for one thing, that people are scaling vertically in the cloud as well as horizontally. Sometimes it's easier to just go with a bigger server than it is to re-architect to be able to use a distributed system. It also tells us, I think, that people are running more serious applications. They're running applications that run at a steady state longer. And in addition to the number of servers launched cumulatively, also the steady state run rate of servers has more than doubled over last year. And that's just in quantity of servers. And then when you then layer over that the cost of these larger servers, you see that the average cost has gone up to 47.5 cents, which is, and this figure I think is from June, but that's over a 270% increase in what people are spending on cloud. So last year at this time, you could see cloud computing is just about at the peak. And I think my comment was between cloud computing and ebook readers, it put a certain company up in Seattle kind of certainly at the peak up there, right? Amazon is in both those businesses. So what do we look like this year? Well, we've moved a little bit to the right. In fact, we're getting dangerously close to that steep downhill. And so we started to get a little concerned about that maybe the hype was dying off. And as much as people use that in a negative way, you know, it's kind of nice to be in a hype business. There's a lot of attention, there's a lot of buzz. But to save the day, private cloud is coming up on the left-hand side there. And now that we support private clouds also, we're hedging our bets so that we can stay as long as possible in that peak of inflated expectations hype zone. I'd also point out a little bit of an oddity. If you look at the trough of disillusionment there, the little red X, it's for broadband over power lines. Go back to the previous slide. It doesn't even exist a year ago. So imagine if you had a technology that came on the scene immediately in the trough and labeled obsolete before plateau. Life is tough. That's the part of the analyst community looking at what's hyped. What's interesting is, from our point of view, cloud is very real. And what people use RightScale for is to really run their businesses day in and day out. Business critical apps, of course, that extends to development and test also. But this is the reality of the situation, is we're just seeing steady, very substantial growth in usage. Day after day, week after week, year after year, it just keeps increasing. So despite all the claims of hype, we're still focused on partners, customers, users who really want to run cloud infrastructures. And we expect that curve just to keep increasing as new clouds come online, as more companies start to explore and use cloud computing, and as new technologies like private cloud begin to take hold. I think, you know, it's a mistake to talk about a single market here. There are really many markets. I mentioned that we're getting started in Japan. Cloud is a bit newer there. It's newer in Europe than it is in the US. And within different market segments, not just geographically, but different business segments, we see different maturity levels. So really, I think where I would place the infrastructure cloud and RightScale today is kind of on both sides of that chasm. We have some customers that are really in the early majority now. We have groups of users who've been using cloud for several years, especially in the SMB and startup space. It's really a no-brainer to use public cloud resources as opposed to building it yourself. And that's become a pretty well-established business for us. We know what that looks like. It's pretty well known what cloud is about. On other sides of the business, in other parts of the world where cloud technology is a bit newer, then maybe we're on the early adopter side, or even with larger organizations that are still kind of dipping their toe in the water. For us, these can represent large projects, but in the scope of the IT business writ large, which is $1 trillion business, I think we would characterize those as early adopters. And so we're kind of spanning a world where some customers are innovators, they're technology savvy, they're willing to put up with some patience with some glitches or issues around implementation, and then others who are really driven very much by just practicality. They're looking for solutions that increase productivity. They're looking for solutions that don't require them to change their existing practices. Just increase my productivity, leverage what I'm already doing, and don't put me through a lot of bugs and stuff like that. I think that characterizes where we are today. So cloud went global very fast. I mentioned we have offices in other locations. This is a picture of where RightScale's paying customers are. We have more information about their location, so it's a little easier to map. We have over 30,000 signups for the free edition of RightScale. I think when we get better at it, we'll be able to map those. But you can see that the cloud spread globally very fast. And if we characterize who's using it. In simple terms, again, you'll hear later today from real customers, and probably there's some sitting next to you, real users of the system. But one way to characterize this is it's a very, very broad span of customer types. It's not just startups, it's not just SMBs or middle-sized companies. It spans from startups through enterprise companies using cloud. And one of my little ways of saying that, the A to C of customers at RightScale might be called Associated Press to Zynga. And so you see many different uses. You see use cases ranging from public-facing websites, sites that need scalability because of flash crowds that visit and very fluctuating loads, to more steady-state implementations, enterprises that are actually exploring ways to kind of make IT departments the hero again. Instead of people working around the IT department, and in one case we talked to a company where they told us they did an audit and 60 different individuals were running independent Amazon accounts and expensing them on their monthly credit card, to a world where they can organize that, bring it back under some purview of IT so that they can deliver predictability, reliability, and some compliance and control through a dual interface. And that's something you can talk to our folks about. We call it the SelfService Portal. It combines the full RightScale interface for internal IT administration with a simplified view that business users can use, where the IT department has set up maybe 4 or 5 applications that are approved to run. They can be accessed in an agile, elastic way by clicking a button, but at the same time, there's control in the IT department of how those are designed. So really very broad span of customers using cloud. About 2 weeks ago, in preparation for this, we decided to do a survey of our user base. I think we got about 165 responses, and polling about trying to compare where the industry is today versus a year ago, what people's plans are, et cetera. And so I'm going to go through some of the results that I think are pretty compelling and interesting from this. The first part is just give you a sense of who responded. It really ranges from heads of companies, and those are often more smaller companies, down through all kinds of different R&D and IT roles, and including, you see the big one at the bottom is architect and strategist. Cloud is still something that's very much dominated by folks who are forward-looking and figuring out what strategy should be. This question was around who's really driving the initiative for cloud adoption in your organization. And what's curious about that is how it's coming from the top, right? Not solely from the top. There are lots of folks investigating from development, IT ops, even line of business. But as we sit here today in 2010, a lot of cloud initiatives are driven from the very top of the organization, either CEO, CIO, et cetera. In blue, you have 2010. In yellow, you have 2011 or next year. And the question is around, what are your plans with regard to adoption of cloud? So you see at the top, again, apologies, a little tough to read, but those who have no plans for cloud next year are 3%. Only 3% of the companies we surveyed have 0 plans. And the first 3 categories, no plans, they're just researching cloud or only implementing a proof of concept. You notice that for 2011, all of those reduced. So people that are standoffish or just really doing the initial experimentation has reduced, whereas the bottom 3, they're launching a production app or continuing to run a production app or have budget for cloud computing. All of those have increased next year. This is no surprise, but it's actually hard data from this survey that we ran that you can see the growth in terms of companies getting more and more serious about cloud adoption. And here's one that I think is particularly interesting as we come to this point. It's around hybrid clouds. Now, in our definition, a hybrid cloud is a cloud that combines access to a public cloud resource. Examples would be Amazon EC2 or Rackspace Cloud, et cetera. Outsourced public clouds, as well as running some software on your internal data center to make it appear like a cloud resource. Examples of that are Cloud.com's software, Eucalyptus, and there are others. So what we can see here is in blue, what were the characteristics that were important benefits people were seeking running in the public cloud. In gold, what were people seeking just for private cloud. And what's interesting to me about this is I highlighted some of these in blue. I'll read them because they're pretty small. So those who were more focused on public cloud as providing the solution were around improving IT agility, reducing infrastructure costs. That's pretty obvious. You're not spending as much internally on infrastructure. Improving disaster recovery, business continuity, and improving scalability with on-demand IT resources. Right? So those folks are disproportionately emphasizing public cloud. On the private cloud side, down at the bottom, improve infrastructure utilization. So that's if you already own data centers, data center resources, and improving computing resource security. So those are areas where benefits kind of point to private cloud implementations. But what's also interesting is those that come out pretty much equal for both. Implementing IT self-service for line of business users, that's what I just talked about, the self-service portal, and gaining visibility into resource use and costs of chargeback. Interesting point there is if you actually talk to IT organizations, it's amazing how little we all know about what we're actually spending money on inside IT. It's really not that easy to break it out. And it's interesting that RightScale as a management platform, one of the benefits it delivers is granularity around understanding what you're spending where in terms of usage tracking. This is valuable both for companies that want insight. It's also valuable for partners who are interested in working with us to deliver their software on the cloud, because the same tracking technology can help deliver metering information so that you can bill your customers using new pay-as-you-go kinds of methods that are very popular in the cloud. Well, in order to have hybrid clouds, you do need to have a private cloud side, right? And we've seen really the rise of private clouds in the last 18 or 24 months, really coming on the heels of public clouds. People ask the basic question, why shouldn't I be able to organize my data center in the same way that Amazon has offered EC2, for example? And by the way, our definition of cloud is a little bit stricter than the way it's used in general parlance. Many companies talk about cloud in terms of virtualization. Virtualization is great. It's a powerful technology. It delivers a lot of benefits. But when we talk about cloud, we're talking about a system that exposes an API that can be programmatically manipulated. That's how RightScale talks to clouds. And that is completely automated. So there are offerings out there where you say, I'd like to launch a server, and it's a website, and you press that button, and I think it sends an email to somebody in the data center who then reads it and goes over and provisions something and sends you an email back and says, great, your server's ready. That's not real cloud from our point of view. It doesn't scale well. It's still manual, et cetera. So what's really an important announcement here is that just in the last week, we've announced early access to a special private cloud program that we have that uses a component of RightScale called the Gateway to interface with Eucalyptus, Cloud.com, in addition to public cloud resources. And this means within a single interface, you're able to see both sides of cloud, public and private, really delivering a true hybrid view from our management interface. We'll see more about that later today. There's a breakout session on it. And I think in our upcoming tech talk, you'll hear more about that. Another new announcement that I wanted to highlight, which Betsy mentioned a little bit, is around publishing. We've had the capability for a while for partners to publish in RightScale, but we just recently announced, and I think this was maybe a week or two ago, the ability for anyone to publish a solution. And I just copied a blog that I saw, and I think maybe the blogger is here. Oh, there you are. Thanks for the blog entry. What this shows is that somebody who got a bright idea for creating a server template solution, he actually created several. I think one of them was an LDAP server, one of them was an all-in-one Tomcat server. It means that as a member of the extended RightScale community, you can create content and share it with the world. You can also use this capability in a more limited sense to create solutions that you share within your company. But it's a very, very powerful mechanism, and it's the beginnings of what I think will lead us eventually to a kind of app store in the cloud, where there are a whole collection of solutions ready to use. You'll see if you go on RightScale, there's a rating system, and the collection of offerings is only growing every day. Another cool tool that's just come out 2 days ago is our total cost of ownership calculator. This is a tool that's on the website. And what we found over and over again in conversations with prospective customers is people trying to figure out what the real cost difference is between running in a public cloud or building your own infrastructure. And so we spent actually quite a while on trying to dig down into the details. Any of these models really depend on the assumptions that you make. And we've spent a lot of work on that. And then we have this calculator in 2 forms. This form is a pretty simple web interface, and it's linked off our homepage. So please go have a look at it. It will give you results across assumptions having to do with how many servers and what kind of power you need from the servers, bandwidth and network transfer, storage, etc. It also gives some results around agility, because it's important to remember that when you move to cloud, you're probably reducing the opportunity cost of spending 6 weeks waiting for resources. And then there's a spreadsheet where all of the assumptions are broken out. If you're interested in really drilling down because you say, wait a minute, we're just adding a rack, we've already paid for the real estate. But part of what this exposes is that all of us, when you talk about deploying infrastructure, we do make assumptions. So here they're called out explicitly. I can't tell you how many folks I've talked to that say, you know, I can beat that price. I'm just going to stick a few more pizza boxes, meaning, you know, slide in servers in the rack, and that's a lot cheaper for me. And of course, in that world, the system administration person is free. The rack is free, the power is free, the real estate is free. In their mind, they're just buying some rackable servers. Well, that's one way to look at it, and if you really, all those other things are free because this is just incremental. But on the other side of the picture, it's interesting how often people have run out of data center space, run out of electricity, et cetera, supply to the data center, and they need to go somewhere else. So this is a tool. Please have a look at it and let us know what you think. And then I wanted to just take a second and stand back and share with you, as you really stand back on this exploding cloud industry, what is RightScale? What do we offer? What is the RightScale platform? And as I took a step back, and you know, I'm so proud of it, and this will show through quite clearly, but if you look at an offering that manages these new on-demand infrastructures, whether public or private, in both publicly hosted and private data centers, that's driving new levels of automation and portability, enabling complete control, so that gives you access to modify and customize what you need, author what you need, supporting, as we do today, what's constitutes 95% of server-side operating system usage and 95% of server-side programming language usage, offering a community of cloud-ready software, all from a single web-based pane of glass. I don't think you'll find that anywhere else. This, I think, is truly different and unique.